So let's say you found a skeleton. How would you tell it's a dinosaur? You personally, how would you decide?
Well, interesting question. I don't know. I don't know research on that.
All right, everybody. Sorry, it stayed muted for a little longer than I wanted because I think my mouse is dying. But I am here with TD Lane, and I know that I promised there would be other people, and other people agreed to be here, but none of them are here. So maybe they'll stop in. Maybe they won't. I don't know because none of them are communicating with me. So anyway, TD Lane, why don't you introduce yourself?
Yes. I exist. I am a professional in cryptozoology, clearly, because I said I was. There you go, that's what you need.
Those are the qualifications that it takes to be professional cryptozoologist. Just saying that you are one. Yeah. Look, I'm not going to say that there are no... there are definitely people who are smart and well-credentialed who look into cryptozoology, but yeah. The title of real cryptozoologist is very much self-declared, but that's okay. It's fun time anyway. So let's take a look at the list here. All right. So now what we are going to be doing, we have various criteria for the tier list. So our first criterion is going to be just the overall cool factor, right? Is it a cool cryptid? And that's going to be a very subjective thing, you know, whatever. Then our next criterion is going to be how plausible the animal is, or creature, as an actual thing that could exist, right? So, like, does it actually seem like a real thing that might, like, could it be a real animal? Just on the basis of it as it's described as, you know, an entity, right? So, like, does it have an impossible anatomy? Does it seem to fit well into, you know, like, say, known taxonomy, something like that, right? Then there's going to be plausibility based on the actual sightings. And then we'll do some pop culture influence. So some of these are going to have some significant pop culture influence, some not, you know. And also, I noticed that we have some new faces in chat, so welcome. And of course, we have a lot of our regulars here, so welcome to everybody there. We also did have a $5 super chat before I went live. I can't see it, but I suspect it's Kerry Bronson offering his $5 to the Void, and so the Void gazes back on you with pleasure. Thank you very much, Kerry Bronson, assuming it was you. If it wasn't, then, yeah. Anyway, so we are starting, and if I can get the right window pulled up as my active window, with the Ropin. So the Ropin is from, if I remember correctly, Papua New Guinea, and it is, oh, is this not showing up? Oh, there it is.
Huh?
Yeah, sorry, I was, there's a weird little thing about how, yeah, see, I don't know why that happens. Oh well. So, let's see. Yeah, the Ropin. Sorry. Oh, it happened again. I have to change how I'm doing this. Give me a second. Sorry, that'll work. Okay, so yeah, if I maximize this window I'm trying to share, like, my version of StreamYard gets all weird about it, so whatever. We'll just do this. And, resize this a little bit. Sorry, guys. Weird technical aspects I forgot about, because it's been a bit since I did another, tier list. It's been a few weeks, and I forgot all the details. All right, so we are going to start with the Ropin. So Ropin is going to come up here in the middle for discussion. So in modern versions of this, the Ropin seems to be a bioluminescent pterosaur. Or at least that's what the creationists out there would like us to think. Because one of the weird things is the intersection between cryptozoology and young Earth creationism. There's a whole bunch of young Earth creationists who want to go out and find dinosaurs and things that they think are dinosaurs, even though it wouldn't help their cause at all. So, now there are some stories that probably do predate Western contact. However, they're kind of iffy. But on our first basis, so on just general cool factor, well, I do like pterosaurs quite a lot, actually. Bioluminescent pterosaur that digs up graves it's kind of middling for me. It's kind of a C grade on interestingness, just as a creature that could possibly exist.
Yeah, it's weird. I personally, I have a soft spot for the Ropen. I like it, but like,
that's fair.
Compared to like, I don't know, Mothman.
Yeah,
it's not as cool.
Okay, so what do you thinking? Probably a C for that, for cool factor as well.
I think I'd agree with C for cool factor.
Okay, let's see. Now, when it comes to plausibility in terms of it actually being an organism, the only big problem I'm seeing in the modern version of the Ropen as a bioluminescent pterosaur is bioluminescence. As far as I know, there are no bioluminescent tetrapods ever that we've ever found. Of course, I guess I can't rule out that pterosaurs were bioluminescent, but
no idea, man. Anything's possible.
I mean, yeah, there's no like physical law that would break, but it seems extremely far-fetched. And the other thing is, what are you doing with that bioluminescence? But on the other hand, it also doesn't have, unlike some of our other things here, completely impossible options for anatomy and things like that. So I'm actually going to go ahead and say it's actually probably a B for biological plausibility.
I think I'd agree. It's like it's got these kind of weird hybrid features of pterosaurs between the different genera of pterosaurs. When the main proponents like to portray it, so like okay,
yeah. So even in this picture, it has a Pteranodon sternbergi, like most of the body, but then it's got a Rhamphorhynchus mouth and tail. So
yeah,
it does seem like a conglomeration of various not closely related pterosaurs.
I think the Ropan, like at best, is probably a good example of of Western society kind of interpreting the original story different and perverting it in a way. But like in actual biological possibility, it does seem reasonably plausible compared to other cryptids.
Okay.
So I think I do B.
All right. Now we come to plausibility of the actual sightings, which, okay, so sightings are, now, there's a few problems here. One is, to some degree, these sightings might actually just be attempts to get money from quote-unquote researchers. Because, I mean, let's face it, if someone was just going to come down and, like, you know, give you free money for telling a weird story about a monster, which people do, and you're someone who lives in a rural village in the jungle, where it's not easy to, you know, get money, you're going to tell pretty much anything to these stupid foreigners who don't live there and have no idea what they're talking about, but are just going to give you money. On the other hand, they're fairly widespread, so I'm still going to stick with a C on this one, where it's just like, it could be worse. Like, it's not like a one-time sighting by a bunch of drunkards. But on the other hand, I can think of ulterior motives for reporting sightings other than genuine encounters with some kind of phenomenon.
You know what? I actually kind of agree with that for a C tier, because the Ropen doesn't have like the ridiculous Bigfoot level sightings.
Yeah.
But it's also not like a drunkard seeing a weird thing.
Yeah. And sorry, I'm going to type for just a second.
Actually, the Ropen was a very good thing to lead with, because it is very middle of the road. Yeah.
Well, I wanted to space out some of the most popular ones, because I'll be honest, I'm trying to get people to stay and keep watching. So, all right. And then finally for impact on, like, pop culture, I'm going to have to go ahead and say, like, basically F tier. Like, most people haven't heard of it. There's like no Ropin merch. Only creationists go on Ropin hunts.
Dude, I'd love it if we could get a Ropin plush. That'd be great.
It would be, but like no one makes those. They don't sell. They wouldn't sell. Also, for $5 from Vandalia in 1998, we have, hey, I'm finally starting to feel better after my second COVID shot. It packed a punch for me, but I'd do it again because it's still better than actually getting it. Oh, awesome, man! Congratulations on getting better and getting your second vaccination. Benthoven's second vaccination is this week. My second vaccination is next week, and then yeah. So the Dapper Dino.
I still need to schedule my first shot.
Get on it, TD, man. The longer you wait, the worse it is.
But I'm lazy.
I don't care. It doesn't take that long. And it doesn't cost anything.
I know.
Even if you don't have insurance. So, yeah, if you're in the US and you're worried about paying money for it, there's an actual fund set up by the government to pay for shots for people who don't have insurance. You can just tell them, I don't have insurance. They'll write something on the little vaccine card that says, oh, you're being paid for by this federal program. And then that's it. In fact, if they wanted to bill you, most places, as far as I know, aren't even taking addresses. So, good luck getting a bill. So yeah, go get that scheduled. There's no good reason not to unless you have an actual, like, immune problem or an allergy to one of the components of the vaccine. So, like, yeah, those are valid medical reasons not to, but if that isn't the case, go do it. Anyway, overall, I'm going to have to go ahead and say that this is probably a C tier, because while the popularity is not great, we had, like, 2 out of 4 in C, and 1 in B, and I think that... As I accidentally moved the background. I think that means that C is a pretty appropriate place for the Ropin.
Yeah, I agree. I think most of the people that know about it is probably because of Trey's video on the Ropin, which is excellent. I suggest you watch it.
I don't remember if that's how I first learned about the Ropin. I don't think it is, but I've known about it for a long time, and I don't remember if that was the reason. The reason I think it probably isn't because I don't remember being like, oh yeah, that's now I know about the Ropin. And also, since it's a big deal with creationists, I think actually my first time encountering it was like John Morris Pendleton claiming that he was going to go hunt one down.
Oh God.
Yeah. So in case you guys don't know who John Morris Pendleton is, he is the subject of the Logic series. Hello, I'm a scientist, because that's how he starts most of his really, really low tier creationist videos. Okay. And the Venerable Bead says, in Washington, which I think he means Washington State, if I remember correctly, they stuck me and I left. Never talked about payment. Yeah. I have talked to some people who have been hesitant about the vaccine because they're worried about payment, but yeah, nope. Not something you should be worried about. You should not be getting a bill from that, even if you don't have insurance. So here we go. All right, next up is the one, the only, the Loch Ness Monster.
Oh no.
Yeah. All right. So the Loch Ness Monster, in terms of plausibility as an actual organism, I'm actually going to have to give it a D. Now here's the thing: the anatomy itself is not like when it's normally reported as a plesiosaur. Like, okay, plesiosaurs, we know they existed, so like obviously that's not too implausible for a plesiosaur to exist. A late surviving plesiosaur would be unexpected, but like there wouldn't be any logical problem with it, right? The problem, though, is having a creature that big in that fairly small lake that does not have a huge amount of food in it. Because people have done, like, you know, surveys of like how many fish are there. They've done radar and sonar surveys of the lake, and there's eDNA testing coming in and whatnot. And yeah, no, there's really not any good way to support such a population of such large creatures. So for plausibility, I'm going to go ahead and say D, because it's less plausible than I would say the average cryptid, just in terms of ecology. But it's like the anatomy isn't insane. So
I mean the portrayal of the Loch Ness Monster currently isn't that insane, aside from bad pterosaur neck. Early Loch Ness Monsters, those are well, I'm sticking with
the versions that most people are familiar with nowadays, which are not always the first versions. So you think D is appropriate for the plausibility from a biological standpoint?
Yeah.
Okay, let's see. Now, in terms of its actual, like, the quality of, or its cool factor, sorry, we skipped over cool factor. I don't know, I think it's pretty cool. I like the idea of a plesiosaur living in a lake. I mean, seems kind of scary. I don't know. I'm gonna go ahead and say probably an A for cool factor.
I'm going to disagree with you for the reason you said, which is it's a plesiosaur in a lake.
I like that, but you don't have to, so that's fair.
So I'm gonna say C.
Okay. Now, in terms of the quality of the sightings, actually, quite a few of them, especially some of the older ones, but even some of the newer ones, are actually pretty good. Like, we get widespread sightings by a lot of different people at different times. Many of the people are not, like, obviously untrustworthy. And while I do think that they're mistaken, I do think that there are better sightings than on average, right? Like, if we're going to compare it to some of our things here, like, I don't know, the Flatwoods Monster or something, where there was one sighting at night by, like, 3 people, it's a lot better than that. So I'm going to go ahead and say it's not quite A tier on sightings, but B tier is probably reasonable.
I'd say that's reasonable.
Okay. Now, when it comes to impact on pop culture, I mean, it's an S tier.
Yes.
No,
yes.
there is no one who hasn't heard of the Loch Ness Monster, really.
Nobody hasn't heard of it. It's gotten everywhere, and everybody's parodied it. So it's like, yeah, no duh.
Plus, you know, Bob Knob here, he gave the Loch Ness Monster Tree Fitty just to get it to go away. So, okay. But overall, I think that probably lands Loch Ness Monster in an A or a B. And I'm not sure which one, but I think I'm going to go B unless you can persuade me A or something else.
I'm gonna say B.
B? Alright. Loch Ness Monster.
Yeah.
You are a B tier cryptid. Congratulations.
Oof.
Okay, now we get one that I kind of think of in the same vein as the Ropin, right? Mokele Mbembe.
Yeah.
So, Mokele Mbembe is another one of those cryptids which doesn't seem to have existed until young Earth creationists started looking for it.
Yeah.
They tell stories about it being essentially a sauropod that lives in a swamp in the Congo, which is already a problem because sauropods were not swamp dwellers. They did not like to hang out in the water. They could swim. We do have trackways of them swimming in rivers and whatnot. But, like, yeah, they were not swamp animals. But older versions of, you know, our understanding of sauropods did think there was the idea that maybe they did live in swamps to support their weight. We now know that that would have basically made them incapable of breathing because of the immense pressure, given how deep underwater their torsos would be compared to how high up their necks would be. But, yeah.
Yeah.
So when it comes to cool factor, though, because we'll start there, I'll be honest, I like the idea of sauropod in the swamp less than I like the idea of bioluminescent pterosaur or lake plesiosaur. I think it's kind of a D on cool factor.
Yeah, it doesn't have anything going for it. It's just dinosaur in the modern age, but without the cool thing going for it with the Ropin, which is the bioluminescence.
Yeah. So yeah, I think D. Now, when it comes to plausibility as an organism, I think it's basically a B. Like, it's reported as being a fairly small animal compared to, like, the largest sauropods, so could it live in a swamp at that size? Yeah, probably. Is there something, like, fundamentally impossible about the biology of a sauropod? Well, obviously not, because they did exist. So I think it's basically I'd say B for plausibility as far as an organism goes.
Yep.
Okay.
It's not possible.
Yeah, so, let's see. When it comes to the quality of the sightings, those vary a lot. So here's one of the big problems, right? Mokele Mbembe seems to have actually been invented in order to get stupid white people who showed up in the Congo to give up money and, like, goods like clothing and coffee and t-shirts and whatnot, right, to the locals. Because
Yeah.
if you look back to the farthest, earliest reports about Mokele Mbembe that you can track down. They basically start in the early 20th century, and the reports about the word means he who stops the river and whatnot. It's like, yeah, no one is actually able to confirm that who can speak any of the languages in the area. In fact, people in the area have given alternate translations like, I think that word just means rainbow, dude. And yeah, so it seems like it was literally made up to fool young Earth creationists because they were willing to give up money in order to be told stories about dinosaurs. And then you get these stories like, oh, we showed them pictures of dinosaurs and they picked this dinosaur. Like, okay, but like, I know that you say they've never heard of dinosaurs, but you realize that people living in the Congo are not generally uncontacted rubes who are not aware of the wider world, right? Like, they might not own a dinosaur book. That doesn't mean they've never heard of them. But if they think they can get money out of you for pretending to have never heard of a dinosaur, I mean, I'd do it. Dude, some guy showed up at my house, like outside my house, and he was like, "Hey man, I'll give you $20 to tell me a monster story." I'd be like, "All right, sure, let's do it. What kind of monster you want?" So, yeah, I'm gonna have to go ahead and say the sightings are like F tier on this one. They're just so obviously not real.
Yeah. I think F tier is appropriate.
Okay. When it comes to like impact on pop culture, it's sort of in the same boat as like the Ropin. It's made essentially not quite as low impact on pop culture because there was at least one movie based on Mokele Mbembe. It was a mainstream movie, and I think it was called The Last Brontosaurus or something like that. It was a kids movie where, you know, a kid finds a baby Mokele Mbembe and had to return it back to the swamps in the Congo. And I mean, it wasn't terrible. I watched it a few times as a kid, and I think I've seen it once as an adult. And it's not great, but it's not bad. So it definitely has a better impact than the Ropin, but that's basically because the Ropin has had zero impact culturally. So I'm gonna have to go ahead. I think overall, Mokele Mbembe comes out as like a D for me.
Yeah, I agree. It's not that cool. It's pretty bad actual sightings. Its actual like plausibility, it's all right, but it's not made an impact very much outside of Loonland.
The Venerable Bee points out that basically using people's racism to dupe them. I mean, to some extent, yeah. Look, if someone's going to be racist to you, but you can get that to work in your favor because they pour money at you, I'm not going to tell you not to. Yeah. If some racist white guy shows up in the Congo and he's willing to just give people free stuff because he thinks they're dumb, take the free stuff, man. Just do it. Who cares? That's his problem. And then Vandalia 1990 says, any way you can make the list bigger, it's an option. I can't guarantee that that's what's going to happen, but it could. Oh, apparently Captain Gargoyle does not think D is, yeah. Oh, and the Federal Beat apparently thought that movie was just a fever dream. No, that was a real movie. Otherwise, how do we both remember it? So there you go. There you are in D. So now we come to the Fresno Nightcrawler. It's a pair of pants. So in case people don't know, the Fresno Nightcrawler is not one of the big names like Chupacabra, Mothman, or Bigfoot, right? So the Fresno Nightcrawler is a thing seen in two separate security footages in and around Fresno, California. And basically in both of them, one or two pairs of pants walk across the frame. And yet it looks like a pair of baggy pants. They kind of billow around, and there's no like upper body. And when it comes to cool factor, I just love the idea that there's a pair of pants walking around there are two pairs of pants walking around in California. Just pants. So I'm actually like A tier on just cool factor. Like, come on, dude. Who comes up with this? No,
S tier.
S tier on cool factor?
Out there.
Yeah.
It's so out there and interesting. I just can't have it. Like, I just can't help it.
Yes. Yeah, it's so fair enough. On a fairness, A or S is reasonable there. Because it's just like, come on. It's It's just, yeah, as Novoraptor says, it's the wrong trousers. Yeah, it's like, I'm sorry, did someone's yoga pants escape? Like, what is actually happening? Now, when it comes to plausibility, though, that's
no, it's in graph 4.
yeah, that's the thing. It's we have to banish it for plausibility because, like, I'm sorry, there are not a pair of just pants walking around California.
Wait. What if it's the remote control pants from SpongeBob?
or the remote control pants from what was it? The wrong trousers. What's the name? Now I can't think of the name of the thing. Wallace and Gromit. There you go.
Yeah, there, exactly.
Yeah, the wrong trousers from Wallace and Gromit. So yeah, like, it's just the absolute bottom of the barrel for plausibility. I'm sorry, but a pair of pants is not a real thing that's walking around out there.
Oh yeah.
Now, when it comes to the quality of the sightings, though, I'm actually going to go ahead and say it's probably a B, because as far as I can tell, there's no known connection between the people who the owners of the 2 security cameras, because one was in a state park and one was in just someone's house, right? So I don't actually think that those security cameras caught something on camera. I don't know what they caught on camera. I'm pretty sure it wasn't living pants. But like, the quality of sightings is actually really good. Like, there's video evidence. We've only got 2 sightings, but yeah, there something was captured on the frame of that video. So,
And like, seriously, like, 2 good video captures is pretty decent.
yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna go ahead and say that this is probably A tier for the quality of the actual captures.
Yeah. I would agree.
Okay. So let's see. Then for impact, it's kind of low. I think it's like a C. It's fun. There have been TV specials about it. I think anyone who's even kind of a little bit into the cryptozoology thing has probably heard of the Fresno Nightcrawlers. So I'm gonna have to say probably maybe a C, because like, I don't think most people have heard of them, but they have had some impact. Actually, no, you know what? Because I gave the Ropin like a C for that. I'll give it a B for cultural impact.
I thought the Ropin was lower in cultural impact.
Oh yeah, you're right. Whatever. You know what? Sure, fine, a C.
Yeah, C.
All right, but I think overall, given the quality of the sightings and the cool factor rating, that this is probably going to have to end up at least an A.
Yes.
Okay. I'm okay giving the Fresno Nightcrawler an A. And then we'll have to make fun of Erica for missing the Fresno Nightcrawler. Yeah, Gutsec Gibbon was originally supposed to be here, but allegedly she is busy submitting something?
No, she's
It doesn't matter.
No, she's getting stuff ready because she's going to be out of town for a little while starting on Thursday.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, hold on a second. There's a dog who's whining behind me. You don't have to do that. Sorry about that, everybody. You probably couldn't hear it, but it was grating on my nerves for a little bit. So I had to go turn around and be like, hey, come on. Okay, so...
Go pet the puppy, dude.
No, I'm busy. I did it again. See what you made me do? That's on you. That's on you, TD Lane. All right. So next we come to El Chupacabras, or the Chupacabra, as it is more often known in English. So, the Chupacabra comes in Sorry?
So just a hairless coyote, then?
Well, so we're going to talk about that, because there are 2 versions of the Chupacabra. There are the original versions, in which it is a reptilian, sort of vaguely humanoid, but digitigrade thing with spikes on its back and big old fangs and red glowy eyes.
Sounds like fun.
Yeah, and it looks sort of like a lizard monkey. Those are the descriptions that actually come out of the first claimed sightings of the Chupacabra from Latin America.
So it's straight from the Triassic, then?
It's actually closer to the monster from the movie Species.
Oh.
So, which was popular at the time that the first sightings came out. So, you know. But then when the chupacabra sightings started getting into Anglo-America, when it started leaving Latin America, the sighting kind of turned into what is essentially, just a mangy coyote, which is less interesting. And the thing is, when I say like I want to go with like the modern conception, both conceptions of chupacabra still exist, right? So in places like Texas or New Mexico, you're primarily encountering people who are claiming to have seen the weird canine version. But if you're going in places like Mexico or Puerto Rico, and places like that, you're still getting people who are claiming to see the monkey lizard thing. So it's one of those weird ones where it's almost like there are two cryptids rolled into one name.
Okay, so like monkey lizard, that's cool. I like that. Give it an A.
Okay.
Mangy coyote, no.
Yeah, mangy coyote is boring.
That's just unhygienic. Go to D.
So yeah, it's a weird one. We might actually have to have 2 chupacabra ratings.
Yeah, you can't have a picture, dude.
What's well, here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna find out which layer this is, because I don't remember. Because did I name the layers? No.
Cool.
So here's what we're gonna do. We're going to duplicate the layer, and now we have 2 chupacabras. So first we'll rate the original chupacabra. Then we'll rate the later version of the chupacabra. Okay. So original version, I mean, cool factor is off the charts on that one. Lizard monkey, I'm okay with saying that's an S tier awesome. Awesome design. I like everything about that. When it comes to
it's a pair of pants, but it's definitely cool.
Well, it's fair. But still, I think I would say S. So let's see.
You know what? I'm going to upgrade my ranking. Let's say S.
Okay. So let's see. When it comes to the plausibility as an organism for the original chupacabra, I'm gonna have to say it's an F. There's just nothing that really fits the description of a lizard monkey with glowing eyes and like weird dog feet. And because one of the things is that there were reported tracks of the chupacabra in some of the original sightings, and they were basically just dog tracks. Yeah.
Yeah, big surprise.
So I'm gonna have to go ahead and say it's basically an F for biological plausibility.
Yeah.
When it comes to the quality of the sightings, though, they're actually not terrible. There's no indication that these were, like with Mokele and Bembe or the Ropin, that these were just created in order to, like, get money out of, like, you know, dumb tourists or anything. The people who claim to have saw it usually ended up actually losing out on the deal because they usually had significant livestock death involved, which was attributed to the chupacabra. That's why the legend started, was as an explanation for some... sort of like a rash of livestock death. And so, like, I actually think that the sightings are pretty good. I think they're basically either A or B for the quality of the sightings.
I tend to... I'm going to say that the kind of eyewitness sightings generally lower than pretty much any good pictures or video, so I'm going to say B.
Well, there have been some pictures of it that are not too much worse than the average picture of Bigfoot.
Oh.
So, which means they're probably hoaxes, but they do exist. And I mean, I think the Fresno Nightcrawler is probably a hoax, but you know, I still said it was pretty good sightings.
Pants.
Yeah, I still said it was a pretty good sighting rate. So I don't know. There are pictures that purport to be the chupacabra that look creepy and scary. So I don't know.
Yeah.
All right. So when it comes to pop culture, I actually think it's right up there nowadays with Bigfoot and Loch Ness Monster and whatnot. Like everyone's heard of the chupacabra.
Oh yeah.
So
I'm going to say probably A though for sightings, because while everybody's heard of the chupacabra, it's the reptilian one is it's less known in the United States. That's for certain, and
Well, at least
Anglosphere
among the English-speaking population. But if you talk to the Spanish-speaking people in the United States, especially in the southern and southwestern states, they're still likely to know about the original version.
I think I've realized what I've done. I have accidentally been a bit America-centric. Oops.
There is that too, yeah. So I think overall it's got a really high cultural impact.
No, I'm going to say S tier then for cultural impact because everybody knows it.
I think that overall gets us into an S tier for the original Chupacabra.
Yeah, it's overall high.
Okay.
First S tier. There you go.
Here we go, Chupacabra. You are an S tier cryptid. Congratulations. Now, let's talk about the Chupacabra.
Okay. The all-American Chupacabra.
Yeah, so the Anglo version of the Chupacabra is a mangy coyote. Let's not mince words here.
Yes.
It is a mangy coyote.
Yeah.
People have claimed to have killed Chupacabras, and when those bodies are examined, they're just mangy coyotes.
Mm-hmm.
So coolness factor, I'm gonna go ahead and say Grethor, the Shadow Realm, like it's just a mangy coyote. Come on. Like, I don't know why we have to give it a special name. When it comes to the quality of the sightings, I mean, they're fine. I mean, people see mangy coyotes, okay? But, like, are they seeing something cool? No, you're just seeing a parasite-ridden coyote.
Oh.
When it comes to plausibility, yeah, I guess it's really high. It's S tier, because they exist.
Yeah.
Mangy coyotes are a thing, guys.
Yay.
Yeah. Then when it comes to cultural impact, I actually think it's lower than the original Chupacabra. Most Americans have probably heard of that version of the Chupacabra, but I don't think that that's going to be the case in most other places. Now, I don't know. Look, guys, if you're not from North America and you've heard of the mangy coyote version of the Chupacabra, let me know in the chat, because I feel like people probably haven't that much, but I don't know. I haven't done, like, surveys or looked into it, so... Yeah, let me know.
One in the chat if you have heard of the mangy coyote Chupacabra and you are not from North America.
Yeah, just let me know. Because I do know that I do have some viewers who are not from North America. Actually, I would even say if you're from Latin America, let us know if you've heard of the Anglo-American version of the Chupacabra. Because I suspect it's even not all that popularly known in places like Mexico. So... yeah, let me know. But I'm going to overall go ahead and say that I think the Chupacabra is both S and Shadow Realm for the two different versions.
Yeah, I think Mangy Coyote needs to be fronted in the Shadow Realm.
Yeah, Mangy Coyote
you're not
is
just... You're just unhygienic.
Yeah, it's just like, come on. Exactly. All right, so now we have the Dover Demon.
Oh.
So, yes, the Dover Demon. Let's see.
I've not heard of this.
So the Dover Demon is an alien-like small creature that was sighted in Dover, Massachusetts, which is an area of Massachusetts that has it's got a few cryptid sightings here and there. It's sort of an area where it just seems like people see weird stuff, or maybe weird people live there. I used to live not too far from Dover, but then again, I used to live in Massachusetts, and Massachusetts is not too far from any other part of Massachusetts compared to, like, you know, if you're in California.
Personally, I prefer the English Dover because it has big cliff.
Well, yeah.
It's all chalk.
Yes, it is. So, the Dover Demon was described as being running around on all fours, having a vaguely humanoid shape, red glowing eyes, and not having any facial features apart from eyes. So it sort of ties into sort of the gray alien look. But at the time, that wasn't like a super popular like thing in pop culture, so it may or may not have any connection to the gray alien idea. When it comes to coolness factor, I'm gonna go ahead and say like it's C. It's a small thing with red eyes. I don't know. It's okay. It's fine, but it's not amazing. So when it comes to plausibility, the no facial features other than eyes is super implausible. I'm talking like F tier on that one. Like, I'm sorry, no.
Get a mouth, loser.
Right, yeah, there isn't some animal out there that's not going to have a mouth or a nose or something like that, right? Yeah, you have to have somewhere to put food. You have to have some place for gas exchange. Yeah, you have to have some kind of opening. So, yeah, when it comes to plausibility, I'm giving it Shadow Realm. There is just no option that comes out with an animal like this as being a real thing. When it comes to the quality of the sighting, I'm going to have to go ahead and say F. There's only one real reported sighting. The person who spotted it wasn't like super unreliable or anything, but it was at night in the woods where it's very easy to mistake whatever you saw, and there haven't really been any reliable sightings after that. So I'm going to say probably F tier for sightings. And I know you're not too familiar with the Dover Demon, so that itself probably means F in terms of cultural impact. I think we might have an F tier.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, let's get to the F tier here. Sorry, Dover Demon, you're just not that cool. And I really only put it in there because when you look up cryptids, it's one of the ones that usually comes somewhere on the list. Usually low ranking, but it's on there. Okay,
Yay.
so now we're going to take a look at the Jersey or Leeds Devil.
Ooh.
From the rather, already themselves, kind of creepy Pine Barrens in New Jersey. We have the Jersey Devil. So, the Jersey Devil has a backstory involving a woman who didn't want to have another kid, and so then cursed the kid while she was still pregnant, saying that she hopes it will be a devil when it's born. And then there's a couple variations. In one variation, the child is born as a normal baby boy, but quickly grows into some kind of devil, and then when it finally transforms, it flies up the chimney, screeching into the night. The other version of the story is that the child was immediately born with all sorts of... Oh, we got Gutsick Gibbon. What is up? How are you today, Erica?
What's up?
Yo.
So, Erica, you might or may not agree, but I will go over our tier list as it stands right now.
Deal.
So right now we have... Oh, sorry, my window is being a jerk. Anyway, actually, you know what? I got timed out by a bot on Twitch the other day for saying jerk. I was like, really? Come on.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Get timed out,
so,
nerd.
In both S and the Shadow Realm, we have Chupacabra. The original Latin American version of the Chupacabra is the S tier version. The American, it's just a mangy coyote, is the Shadow Realm, because it's just a mangy coyote. It's not even a real cryptid. It's just a parasite-laden coyote. So...
You're talking about the difference between, like, the first sighting versus, like, the pictures that went around all the time in, like, 2004 on Google Images, like that.
Yeah. Yeah, because basically when the idea that Chupacabra started, like, filtering into English-speaking North America, it got way more boring. The Latin American version, which was the original version that actually spread into places like Mexico and Puerto Rico and stuff like that, that was actually pretty cool, because it was like a weird lizard monkey with glowing eyes and dog feet and stuff. So...
Yeah, I think the original Chupacabra, like the original sightings were pretty limited to Puerto Rico. Like it ended up, like Mexico had some, but most of it was Puerto Rico. Over
time, it did filter into the rest of Spanish-speaking, like the Spanish-speaking world, but it was very, very centered in Puerto Rico. But that's one of the reasons why, actually, a lot of people would say probably not real, is because it takes a very long time for it to be spotted outside of Spanish-speaking areas, but it ends up in Spanish-speaking areas that are separated by big distances and whole big old bodies of water, whereas closer English-speaking areas like the Florida Keys or whatever, not a single sighting. So it's like, that's not how biogeography works. Animals don't care about what language you speak, but memes do, because it takes longer for memes to cross language barriers than it does for, animals to cross a bit of ocean. So then in A tier, we have the Fresno Nightcrawlers.
Fresno Nightcrawlers S tier, my dude.
You should have been here for it.
Yeah.
Then in B tier, we have the Loch Ness Monster. In C, we have the Ropin. In D, we have Mokele Mbembe. And then in F, we have the Dover Demon. And we are now talking about the Leeds or Jersey Devil. And so our criteria, as I stated, in case you're just joining us now, our criteria are cool factor, biological plausibility, quality of the sightings, and cultural impact. So when it comes to coolness factor for the Jersey Devil, I think it's probably like, I don't know, I think it's a B. Like a weird horse-headed, cloven-hoofed, bat-winged monster that shrieks at people and flies out from the night and like scares kids or whatever. It's kind of cool. I like the idea. It's a good. No, Erica disagrees.
I think it's worse. I think it's worse Mothman, honestly. Like
I agree.
It's older, and I love the Pine Barren thing, but like, the whole point of a cryptid is that it's something that it's an urban legend that has some kind of usually there's like repeated sightings of it. It's got some kind of omen or spiritual connotation to it. But the Jersey Devil doesn't like. I just don't feel like it has a huge cultural impact, and it feels to me less plausible even than the
cultural impact is a separate category from coolness factor.
Yeah, I'm kind of like assessing them all at once.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I think for cultural impact, it's very limited to the Pine Barrens region. Now, in that area, there have been repeated sightings for a few hundred years. There have been bounties put out. There have been like minor states of emergency declared by local law enforcement after repeated sightings. There have been posses put together to go hunt it down. So, and which also ties into the quality of the sightings. There are actually a lot of independent sightings over quite a ways of the Jersey Devil. So I think for sightings at least, it's fairly high. It's better than say the Dover Demon.
Dapper, how far back do the sightings go actually?
So I'm pretty sure they at least go back to the early 1800s, and I think they might go back to the late 17, but I'm not positive on that. Because one of the
so it's an all-American meme then.
Oh yeah, I mean it's definitely been a part of the culture of the European descended New Jerseyites from around the Pine Barren for a very long time. And it does seem like it's fairly original. Like we don't have a lot of very similar creatures in a lot of other folklore. So, I mean, yeah, cultural impact is not very high unless you're in New Jersey. But the quality of the sightings, I think, is okay. So what are you guys thinking? We'll start with Erica, since she's the
I think it's cool. I think it's okay. I think there's better cryptids.
Oh, definitely.
I mean, it's D tier for me.
D? All right. I think I would say C just because, unlike the Ropin, it wasn't just made up to get stupid white people to hand over their money, which it seems like the Ropin was. So yeah. I think that gives it a C. Because like,
it also doesn't get abused by very motivated creationists, which is kind of funny.
Well, one of the things we talked about was
the actual.
Go ahead, T.
Sorry, go ahead.
Oh well, so one of the things that we talked about was that Mokele Mbembe seems to have literally just been made up to take advantage of young Earth creationists.
Which that totally checks out. I'm looking at pics of the Dover Demon. I'm looking at pics of the Jersey Devil right now. It's I mean, I think the design is pretty original, but unfortunately, usually the more original the design, the less like plausible.
Well, yeah, that is. When it comes to biological plausibility, the bat-winged, cloven-hooved, giraffe-necked horse is, I mean, it's not Dover Demon low, but it's got to at least be a D in terms of biological plausibility. It's no. Actually, I might even just say that it might actually just be Dover Demon level, just for the hexapod thing.
Yeah, you don't want you don't make friends with hexapod cryptids, that's for sure.
So I don't know. I think C or D is fine. What was your vote again, Erica?
Oh, me? I'd D.
D? All right. TD?
I'm gonna say C for coolness.
All right. Well, that means I have to decide if it's a C or a D. All right. I'll tell you what. Chat. Open up the. So there's some of my channel members are in here. Which, by the way, if you want to become a channel member, you can. It's I think it starts at $1.99. So channel members, I'm gonna give you guys a few minutes, and then put a Kent Hovind in the chat if you want it to be D tier, and put the little green tetrapod in the chat if you want it to be C tier. And while we're waiting for those to come in, we have a super chat from Vandalia1998, who for $5 says, "Speaking of Cryptid, I'm still volunteering to host the after show whenever you and Erica are ready to go one-on-one with the Godzilla versus Kong debate."
I still haven't seen Godzilla vs. Kong. I'm really dragging my feet. I haven't had any time.
You have to see it, because that way, look, until you see it, I will feel guilty, talking smack about the movie, and pointing out all the reasons I think that King Kong is just pathetic, and then hearing your counterpoints, because you have to have the counterpoints, and I don't want to have any spoilers. So that needs to be your mission.
I know. Kong is OP when he is armed. That is my trailer.
The main monkey advantage tool.
Erica, all apes are armed.
Most tetrapods are armed.
That's true.
Yeah.
Godzilla is certainly armed by that definition. Let's see. Although you know what, I was a little disappointed. This is a minor spoiler, but I was a little disappointed they didn't recreate the scene where from the original King Kong versus Godzilla from like the 70s or no, the 60s, I think.
Where he shoved the tree down Godzilla's throat.
Exactly. I wanted to see King Kong try to shove a big old tree in Godzilla's mouth. Now I know that the creatures now are way bigger than they were in the 60s, and so I don't know what tree would actually be anything more than a tiny twig to Godzilla at this size, but still.
Redwood.
Yeah, that might be, but then they would have to fight in the redwood forest, which I guess they could do.
Maybe he could use like a battleship or something. I don't know.
Well, they do fight on top of a carrier, which, by the way, I could not support that. But
yeah, that was in the trailer.
Hey, Dapper, they were getting carried.
All right, where are we putting the jersey? Okay, so we got one Canthoven and we have a tetrapod. Oh, you guys are not helping me. Let's see. I'm gonna go ahead and say D. I'm fine with D.
All right.
Sorry, Dover Demon. You're okay, but you're just not that cool. Okay, now we come to Mothman, the one, the only, the one that's actually in the what do you call it? The thumbnail for this video. So. For those of you who might not know, Mothman was a cryptid sighted, Point Pleasant was. Excuse me a second. I need to clear my throat. I'm not sure what's happening.
Point Pleasant, West Virginia.
Yes, thank you. So it was seen in and around Point Pleasant, West Virginia, over the course of a few months, I believe. And at first it was cited as there was a big man-sized creature that looked like it had big wings that were described as kind of moth-like. Although in the pictures you see of it, they actually tend to be a bit more bird-like. But it had big red glowing eyes and a head that was sort of indistinct from the torso. And it was seen on the road a few times. There's one report of it showing up at someone's house and running around the house and scaring the inhabitants. There were some hunting parties put together. The sheriffs got tired of taking calls from scared locals. And then the day before a bridge collapse, it was allegedly sighted on that bridge. And then according to, the story, after the bridge collapse, it never showed back up. And so now it has taken on sort of a supernatural air as like either a portent or bringer of doom.
Yeah, Mothman is a harbinger. It's a bad omen. You don't want to see Mothman.
No. Unless it's in my thumbnail.
Mothman is dope. Mothman is an A tier for me. I think Mothman is like the quintessential everything about a modern cryptid that you could possibly ask for. It's got a lot of sightings of it, quote unquote. It's got a creepy connotation to it. Like it kind of deters cryptid hunters because it's like, ooh, you want to see Mothman, but if it's a bringer of bad news, it's kind of a little bit less desirable. And I really like that Mothman had like it has a reason to not be in Point Pleasant anymore, right? Like it was there as an omen for the Silver Bridge collapse, and then it's gone. So it's like people don't really go to Point Pleasant to see Mothman anymore, and it's not a part of its lore.
There is still the statue
plus it's
there.
A badass design. Yeah. I love Mothman. I'm a big Mothman fan.
Yeah, the only point I could say, and it's not a huge point, is that it's not the most plausible in terms of an actual organism, but it's also not the least plausible. I mean, it's more plausible than the Jersey Devil. So
yeah, and I like the idea that Mothman. I've heard people try to explain Mothman, and when they're discussing what Mothman could be and how it could be kind of plausible in a biomechanical sense, yeah, it's not the worst, right? Like you could maybe get something like that. As the wingspan is a little short, but you could have like these uber light bones. Maybe it's some kind of otherworldly creature that isn't necessarily evolved here.
Maybe it's just a
as
day.
far as like its plausibility, people do a lot of mental gymnastics, and I can appreciate that.
Oh, and we have $2 from Cheesy Boy Cheddar, who says, Dapper Dino, everyone think Mothman is pretty sexy. I mean, he is. Mothman is one of the sexiest of the cryptids here. And plus, with those big old wings, probably gives good cuddles. My guess is that Mothman would be good cuddles.
Dude, Tesla Ranger, I have seen the Mothman prophecies with Richard Gere, and I love it. I love that movie.
That's another reason.
My favorite scene in that movie is when he's on the phone with the mysterious stranger, and I don't want to spoil the line because it's so good, but there's like a very creepy exchange there that I was like, oh my god, that's so spooky.
I think the fact that it got a Hollywood movie that is actually a pretty good movie is also something that puts it pretty high up in the standings. Now, we did mention that there is a Mokele Mbembe movie, but it's not nearly as good.
Yeah.
So, I think...
But it's not true because Mothman is overrated. Listen, the whole Mothman is part moth is hotly contested.
Yeah, I don't actually like that very much. I don't think there's all that much moth to do with Mothman.
Yeah, okay, Saurus Blood says that Mothman was apparently a snowy owl. I don't know. I think that it's an interesting concept. Like it's almost like someone saw something strange, and then it's one of those cases where hysteria took over and people started seeing things that weren't really there.
Yeah, I agree.
Because they're seeing it in all these very strange places. There's not one thing that makes Mothman to me most implausible is that none of the sightings are really, they really don't have a lot of standardization to them. Like there's a lot of variation in what people report. It's like, I saw big flying thing, red eyes. That describes a lot of things that have a tapetum lucidum or like a reflection in the back of their...
It describes virtually every owl, for one thing.
Yeah, so, yeah.
I think probably like some of those initial sightings were just owls. And then it's a mix from there of just hysteria taking over.
Yeah.
It's great. I love it.
All right,
Mothman's
so
great.
I can't talk. What are our votes? I'm okay with A. I think A is pretty reasonable for Mothman.
I think Mothman's A. Sorry.
Okay, what was that, Ergo?
Yeah, no, sorry, TD. No, I think Mothman is A. I think it's such a fun modern cryptid, and a lot of the cryptids on the list aren't like strictly modern. And Mothman is one of those that's like, it is a recent guy. Like this is a guy that's appeared kind of recently, and there seems to only be one of them, and it seems to have a weird, spooky connotation to it. I'm here for it. I stand Mothman.
All right, so this is one that is a
actually, Dapper. Before we move on, I do want to say one thing on Mothman as far as cultural reach goes, which is that there's an extremely disappointing quest line in Fallout 76 on it.
Oh yeah, I've heard about that. I haven't played Fallout 76 because I don't hate myself.
Don't. Just don't give Todd Howard the money.
No.
But like, you put a lot of work into it, and you just don't get anything out of it. So it's like, why?
Boo. All right. So next up is the loup-garou, or various other canine humanoid type things, which you might not know it because they're not super big in pop culture, but actually there are widespread sightings of vaguely dogman creatures from all over the place. It's a very common thing that people report seeing, and they see it people report seeing them in Europe and North America. I think I've heard some reports from parts of Africa of vaguely dogman type creatures. So this is sort of a category. We're lumping all of them together into this. So which we're also going to be doing with Bigfoot. Bigfoot will include things like, the Yowie, or the Yeti, or the Almas, or Ibu Gogo, and stuff like that. Just because if we wanted to list every single ape man or every single dog man, we would be here for the next 2 years.
Yeah. I like the dogmen cryptids. I think that they're most fun when they're in their United States southwestern part of the country limitation. And I really like the stories where the ones that I've heard are usually like people claiming, in anecdotal accounts of like, I was driving down the highway and like, dude, there was just this dog-headed man or a dog-headed couple or, a dog standing on two legs that was very tall. And there's something very unsettling about that to me. Like I guess the idea of something mundane being kind of like grafted onto something that is equally mundane, but together they make this thing that's very otherworldly and like almost a bit uncanny valley. So I also like that they've got a history and they tend to be pretty ubiquitous to a lot of different human cultures. So to me, Dogmen is going to be a B tier.
Well, the thing that I find the creepiest are the stories where someone thinks that there's just a dog or something on the side of the road, and then it stands up. Because it's got that, like, you can imagine shooting it in like a horror scene, right? Like, so you start off with a shot from, you know, just to the right of the driver who's driving a load on this country road in like Georgia or something, or maybe like South Carolina, because, you know, we want to go with the south sort of thing, right? So there's, you know, maybe they're driving through like an area with cypress trees, you know, and then they see a dog on the side of the road, and they stop to see maybe it's hurt or something, because you don't normally just see a dog just standing there. And then, okay, we cut to just behind the dog, and all we can see is a backlit shot of the dog's head. But then as the camera pulls back, it stands up so it stays in frame as you're revealing more and more of the body. And that's just a great horror scene to me. And I want that to be a film. Make that film, somebody. Make the Dogman movie.
Yeah. So Captain Gargle. This is This is not my favorite. If I get a furry fantasy, this isn't it. But they say they usually hear these kinds of stories in the context of skinwalkers. Yeah, I hear that a lot too. The Dogmen usually are like, ooh, is it a Wendigo? Is it a Wendigo? Whatever. And I think that almost adds an additional spookiness to it, because then you've got this element of like, this is a cursed being. This is someone that engaged in cannibalism or some other very taboo activity, and then was like transformed into this thing. And anytime you're going from like cool natural cryptid to like cryptid that has unnatural qualities, I start to get a little bit more spooked by it.
Yeah.
So I actually like that part of it.
All right, so I think B is fair. I don't think it has had the same impact as, say, like Mothman in terms of like pop culture, because it's still kind of a niche thing to know about. But I think overall, when it comes to coolness factor and the quality of the sightings and stuff, I'm okay with B.
Well, and I think dogmen are just about as ubiquitous to human culture as lake monsters are. I mean, a whole lot of cultures have dogmen, and a whole lot have lake monsters. So to me, those kind of are like one bar.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm okay with lumping the other lake monsters like Champy and whatnot in with Loch Ness monsters.
Yeah, the Ogopogo.
Yeah.
I love the Ogopogo.
Okay, well, unless there's a big objection, I'm going to put the Dogmen here in B tier, hanging out with Nessie. There we go. All right, so next up, we have the Mongolian Deathworm.
Oh.
Which, okay, so I have a soft spot for the Mongolian Deathworm. So, don't let me run roughshod over you guys on the Mongolian Deathworm. So, for those of you who don't know, the Mongolian Deathworm is a cryptid from, guess where? That's right, Mongolia. Yep, you got it. Good job, everybody. So the idea is that it is a worm or snake-like creature that has a poisonous breath, and it basically can kill you almost instantly if it notices that you're there. It's described as being worm-like and bright red, like blood red. And yeah, allegedly it lives in the desert. So thoughts?
Mongolian Deathworm is fun. It's a fun cryptid. I like how big it is. I like that it lives in the ground. It makes it inherently kind of difficult to like narrow down where it is. It doesn't have a single location that it can be kind of pinned to, so to speak. I tend to have a soft spot for the Mongolian Deathworm, but only in the context of Kevin Bacon's Tremors.
Yes.
So I love graboids. I think graboids are fun.
So, did you know Benthoven doesn't like that movie that much, and I can't understand why?
Oh, it's so kitschy. It's so ridiculous. That movie is insane.
I think it is close to a perfect movie. And here's the thing, right? So if you just watch it on a surface level, it's a fun monster movie. But then if you actually start looking into like what are the filmmakers actually doing here? Like you can notice certain really cool things, like scenes in the movie almost always start out loud, then gradually get quieter, but then the next scene hard cuts to loud noises, right? So there's a scene where the two main characters are out driving around and talking, and they start out talking loudly to be able to be heard over the noises of like their truck off-roading, right? But then by the time the scene ends, they've stopped. They've done some handiwork. It has gone poorly for Kevin Bacon because he got poop in his face. And then the scene kind of fades out. But then the next scene hard cuts to someone using a jackhammer to pull up a road. And then that scene ends as they discover the body of the guy who climbed up the telephone pole and died of dehydration up there. And that scene ends really quiet. And so a lot of the scenes do that, and it gives you this rhythm to the movie with the sound, because the movie is all about don't make sound. And so each scene itself is a self-contained version of the lesson you're supposed to learn from the movie, or the characters are supposed to learn from the movie. Stop it. Stop making all that noise. So, I don't know. I don't want to talk too much about Tremors, but I just really like that movie. And I know that Beethoven, he just doesn't like it. I don't get it.
He's already talking trash in my dad. But yeah, to me, I mean, so a lot of cryptids represent, assuming, taking from a cultural lens, they usually represent some kind of like inherent fear to the area, or an inherent fear that humans have. Like the ape men or the wild man archetype is like this fear of becoming this primitive primal being, our darker side, our animalistic side. And the fear of Nessie tends to be the depths, right? Like what's underneath the water, we can't see it. It's
big time thalassophobia.
Yeah, what could be lurking down there? And I think the Mongolian death worm is taking like that whole concept and putting it on land. So it's like, what if you couldn't trust where you walked because something might come from below? And I think that that's really creative. I think that it's not really a fear that most people have. So the Mongolian death worm, as far as like cultural permeance, tends to be not that prescient, I guess.
Yeah, I think it's sort of a localized thing. Like, if you live out in a sandy desert, it makes sense. But if you don't, I mean, there's not that great a chance that there's something hiding under the rocks or something of like literally like just inside the rock. Maybe in a crevice under it, but...
What's the fear that the Fresno Nightcrawler represents?
Pants.
Yes.
I love that. The Fresno Nightcrawler is like... It's existential. You reach existential levels with that guy.
It's sort of like what the stonks meme is to memes for cryptids. Like, it makes literally no sense, but it's kind of great anyway.
The Fresno Nightcrawler is a perfect cryptid. I'll go to my grave on that one. I love it. It's also a modern cryptid, but where the Mothman takes it to like spooky levels, the Fresno Nightcrawler is so silly, and I love it. I think you couldn't come up with a sillier cryptid if you tried. There's no less intimidating article of clothing than pants.
Someone's yoga pants escaped, and they're running around in the wild now.
Yeah, multiple of them too. Like in that little thumbnail you've got, there's 2 of them.
Yeah.
You've got a pair bonded group.
Oh, I like to think.
What is the sexuality of our Fresno Nightcrawler?
I like to think it's a mother and baby pants.
Oh, yeah. They're very into paternal care, or so I hear. Yeah, well, for me, Mongolian death worm's gonna be a C tier. It's okay.
I can see C. I might go B just because, and I recognize a part of it might be that I have a soft spot for it. Plus, you don't get many worm cryptids. They all tend to be like tetrapod-ish. So I like that we're getting something that's an invertebrate. But I'm okay with C if we go C.
I overall think that most of its features are C, but I will say that a lot of people have heard of it at least, which is better than a lot of cryptids, actually.
Yeah, there's probably some on this list that are...
Yeah, it has a decent pop culture presence.
But I don't think it's like more. I don't think it's like more in tune with the cultural consciousness than like Nessie or Dogmen or the Chupacabra.
Yeah, it's probably lower than those. All right, I think
like,
C is fair.
Those are hard to.
Maybe upper C, like above the Ropin.
Yeah, but I'm still building this from left to right. So sorry, guys.
Yeah.
No, I don't care. It's fine.
Yeah. All right. So next up, we have the Mapinguari, which is a Amazon rainforest cryptid, which is usually described as a hairy bipedal creature that's like 10 to 12 feet tall, has a single cyclops eye on its head, and a mouth on its chest. Because, sure, of course it is. My favorite idea here is every once in a while you'll hear the cryptozoologist say it. Maybe it's a late surviving giant ground sloth, and it's just like, I'm pretty sure those guys had 2 eyes and mouths on their heads, but what do I know?
Yeah.
Are they thinking like the nose would be mistaken for like some big eye, like at the end of the snout?
So
Or
I haven't
is
actually
that what
heard.
the idea is?
I haven't heard a great description of why these cryptozoologists think that's a plausible option. So I can't actually answer that question. But it just strikes me as like, I don't know. But I will say this: this does not seem to be a made-up thing to get like young Earth creationists to give locals money for them to tell them stupid stories. So it actually does seem to be a real creature that locals in the area know about and report seeing, independent of dumb people from America handing them money to tell them stories that they don't actually believe themselves.
Okay, I see. So this truly is, because I was wondering, okay, what makes this guy different from the Cyclops? But the difference is people are allegedly seeing it.
Yeah.
Okay, because I only know of this guy in total passing, which I guess speaks to its cultural impact. But maybe it's just because we're here and this is not the area that, like, it's not.
We're not in
huge
Brazil.
cultural here, right? But it is elsewhere.
Yeah.
Well,
it was big.
I like it. I think it's cool. It's a neat guy. How do you spell it? Let me see some of the other art for it.
Mapingwari, I think. Now it was cool enough to become a background monster in the MonsterVerse.
Okay.
There is a Titan named after it in the MonsterVerse, with, like, we were talking about the Godzilla vs. Kong. That movie is in the so-called MonsterVerse, along with the King Kong Skull Island, or the Kong Skull Island movie, and the 2014 Godzilla movie, and the 2019, sorry, Godzilla King of the Monsters. Those are all the MonsterVerse movies. So this guy did manage to get an off-screen background role. You can see it written on a few like screens here and there was some concept art made for it. So I think overall, it's a fun design.
This is fun.
It's a fun design, but I think overall, like, it's not very plausible. The sightings are okay. I think the sightings are at least as good as, like, Nessie. But I don't think there's been all that much cultural, like, influence. I think I'm probably going to put it somewhere around, like, a D. Maybe even an F because of the implausibility of the biology. Like, I'm sorry. Chest mouth Cyclops.
There's a lot of this that almost feels like it's just a different version of the wild man archetype that's almost like a little bit, it feels like what Swamp Ape is, right? Like the Swamp Ape, there's a lot to it that's like, okay, this isn't really like a classic Bigfoot or whatever, because it's got like the 3 toes, it's like semi-aquatic, it's green, and this kind of feels like that, where it's like you've got this classic wild man, and then you're like, you're taking away one of its eyes and you're putting its mouth on its stomach. Like,
Erica, you just made me think of the video Mr. Wilford sent earlier when him and Dan were talking about the new Max. It's green.
God, yeah, they're killing me with this. I saw that and I was like, have fun.
So what are we
Y'all
thinking?
have fun.
What are we thinking from a Pingwari? I think I'm probably gonna say, like, I kind of like that it has a good sighting record, but that's really all I can say in favor of it. So I'm thinking like F.
Yeah.
Cheating.
I think it's cooler though than the Dover Devil.
Demon.
It has more.
It's cooler, but honestly, Dover Demon is like in the low area of the F tier. Like, I don't think my Pingwari, I think it's less biologically plausible than the Jersey Devil, honestly. Because, like, in addition to just, like, there's nothing at all anywhere like this, it's not even a good idea for, like, a creature. Like, this is not a good creature to exist, right? Like, if you had hexapods, the Jersey Devil wouldn't actually be that bad at surviving. But a chest-mouthed Cyclops? Like, why? What advantages does either of those things give? I can only think of disadvantages to both.
Yeah, it's definitely not making things easier.
So I think
go back to ancient Greece.
Well,
I just want to you guys on this one because I just don't know that much about this guy.
Well, I think F is okay. Look, not everyone can be a Mothman.
That's 100% true.
All right, so next up we have the Bunyip of Australia. So this is a lake monster, but it's a very specific lake monster, in that it's usually described as being some kind of mammal-like thing. And unlike most lake monsters that are just kind of creepy but don't tend to actually attack anyone, this apparently essentially is like a Australian mammal crocodile. Lies in wait at the edges of lakes and lunges out of the water to kill large animals, humans included.
That's very fun. That's very creative.
Yeah, so I think for that reason it is more interesting than the Loch Ness Monster, in that its alleged interactions with humans are much more significant, right? Like, oh, I saw a head pop out of the lake. Like, okay. Oh, I saw a head pop out of the lake and it ate Ted. That's a much more interesting story.
Yeah, I can totally get behind that. The bunyip. I'm trying to currently hold on.
Dapper. It's a late surviving Pachycetus.
That somehow ended up in Australia? Did it swim there from India?
Well, everything. No, it got sent there by volcano, clearly.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, the volcano shot it to Australia.
Everything weird is in Australia.
I like how selective those volcanoes were, too. It's like, we're going to shoot the kangaroos and the wombats and the koalas to Australia, but, like, tree sloths or jaguars? Nah.
They're going to the Americas. Screw them.
Yeah, no one cares about. I like the idea that we're dealing with like an aquatic adapted like Thylacosmilus or like a marsupial lion, something like that.
Well, the thing about that is, I think it's actually one of the more plausible cryptids, right? There's nothing about it that screams like impossible, right? We know that aquatic ambush or semi-aquatic ambush predators have existed among mammals. It's not a far-fetched thing. And look, how many times have crocodiles evolved? Like 5 or 6 times?
They're almost crab level.
Yeah, basically.
Almost.
Look, there's only a few ultimate life forms. There's like snake, crocodile, crab, and that's about it. Like, really. Those are the ultimate life forms. Everything will either evolve into one of those or go extinct eventually.
Oh, well, don't forget tree. That is also one of the ultimate.
Well, we're
forms.
sticking to mammals for now, or animals. Sorry, not mammals. Animals. In animals, your ultimate destiny is to go extinct or become a crab, snake, or crocodile. I'm sorry.
And
Maybe
plants your ultimate destiny.
pigs have evolved a few times.
The ultimate destiny of plants. Is
Actually, I should say armadillos have evolved a few times. Armadillo might be another ultimate life form.
Yeah.
I do like armadillo.
But yeah, so I think for plausibility's sake, like, it's really high on the bunyip. I like the bunyip in terms of plausibility. Like, if we found fossils of a, like, semi-aquatic ambush mammal in Australia, I wouldn't be shocked. I'd be like, oh, okay, that's cool.
That would be a very fun one. I would really be a big fan of the bunyip if we could. For whatever reason, when I hear it, I always picture like this Monty Python style rabbit that's like leaping out of the water and attacking the bunyip, right? I think the bunyip's cool. I would put it. I'd give it an okay score. I'd give it B tier.
If I had bunyip, I'd call it all bunyip because
Nice.
Yeah.
So, T-Lane, you think B is okay?
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, if it had a bigger, like, reach, I might give it an A. But, like, I mean, it's not pants, so what are you
It's
gonna
not.
do?
No, it's not.
No.
All right, so
You can't. It's not everyone can be the Fresno Nightcrawler. That is for sure.
So now we come to the one, the only Bigfoot, which, by the way, I did put near the end in order to let people see it and be like, oh, I better stick around at least till Bigfoot. Yeah, I know. I'm just basically just trying to keep the audience here. And also make sure that Erica gets in so she can talk about Bigfoot. Because, of course, as our resident primatologist in training, yeah, this is a big one for her. So, Erica, why don't you take it away with talking about Bigfoot?
Yeah, Bigfoot for me is S tier. Bigfoot is, I mean, as you said, we're lumping all hominoid cryptids.
Yeah. So actually, Captain Gargle asked about orang pendek, and we're including orang pendek in this category.
Yeah.
Because basically,
orang pendek, Ibugogo, Alma, skunk ape, you name it, it's included. The Yowie, the Getty, every fun wild man archetype that is semi, ape-looking is included. And to me, they're always fun. Every culture's got a fun wild man archetype, and because we used to have such a diverse situation with regard to the hominins, they tend not to be super implausible to me when compared to a lot of the other cryptids.
I agree.
I mean, because if you have this cognitively inclined primate, they tend to be pretty good at hiding if they want to be. Not to say that Bigfoot is legit, or that any of the cryptids that are hominids are legit, but I tend to point to the billy ape, which is it's a subspecies of Pentroglodytes virus, I think. So it's it's like
the manly chimpanzee, because that's what virus means. It means manly in Latin.
Yeah, well, and they call them lion killers because allegedly, you had these chimps that were bigger than any other chimps living deep in the belly of the Congo, and they would kill lions with their bare hands. And what kind of spurred the adventure into going and saying, okay, is there this undiscovered hominid living here? This was back in the 90s and in the 80s. Someone stumbled across a skull being sold at a black market that had a slight sagittal crest, which is pretty rare even for male chimps. Chimps don't tend to have these big, massive anchors for their temporals. And so they set out and they did this expedition into the Congo. And what they found is that there was indeed an unhabituated, uncontacted, quote unquote, group of chimps living there. They were just chimps, but they were very big. They have these big feet compared to some other populations. And they didn't show a fear of humans because they lived so deep. It's likely that they never really had contact with people. And to them, we were just weird monkey. There's plenty of monkeys in the forest. It's just a weird monkey. So to me, the fact that until 2001, I think it was, we didn't with certainty pin down this random species of subspecies of chimpanzee living in the Congo suggests that your primates are going to be pretty good at staying hidden. Mm-hmm. You reach problems when you're like, oh, there's one in the Himalayas, right?
Yeah, what's it eating up there?
Yeah, what's it eating, right? Or especially because the billy ape, the lion killers were, they're big, but they're chimp sized. They're not.
Yeah, they're not even gorillas.
Yeah, they're smaller, right? Exactly. So, and then you've got what's Bigfoot eating? What about the Ibugogo? This one is quite small.
Actually, I think in terms of diet, the reported habitat for Bigfoot is pretty plausible. There's a lot of stuff in the forest to eat. Humans can survive in temperate forests doing hunter-gatherer stuff.
You certainly could survive. My thinking is more that we would find, okay, so for those of you who may not know, the way that chimpanzees kill their prey when they go on these hunting bands, and bonobos do the same thing, is they don't use their canine teeth to tear it to pieces. They rip it apart with their strength.
It's pretty brutal.
It's pretty brutal. They tear it piece for piece. So you would think, in my opinion, right, unless these guys, and I'm not saying it's impossible, unless they're way up in the Pacific Northwest in these areas where people just aren't coming across their kills or their corpses or whatever. But then you reach these things where it's people say they're seeing them. So it's okay, well, we're obviously stumbling. We're seeing something strange. It's probably mostly unidentified black bears, but there is that slim chance that there's a North American hominid wandering around.
I think it's a very slim chance, but I like the idea.
Yeah, I want to believe. I really do. But as far as cryptids go, when you say cryptid, people think Nessie and people think Bigfoot.
Oh, yeah.
And Bigfoot is the more plausible Nessie. So for me, this is easy S tier.
Excuse me, it's Big Feet. He has two of them.
The
yes.
big feet.
Or she, because we have Patty up here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Absolutely.
Patty has noticeable mammaries, so going with she on
Patty.
She does, and strangely enough, unlike any other hominid or any other hominid, she has fur covering her breasts, which is strange because the only the closest related to us that has fur covered breasts to that degree is gibbons, hylobatids. Chimps tend to be relatively uncovered. Same with bonobos. Same with orangs, and same with
Erica. Big Feet is just Big Gibbon.
Bigfoot is Big Gibbon. That's my conspiracy theory.
It is
right?
the most robust hylobatid, the least arboreal hylobatid by a huge margin.
Yeah.
It's very derived. I
mean, to be fair, so are humans.
Yeah. I mean, well, and that's the thing. We really wouldn't seem so derived if all of our predecessors hadn't been knocked off the ladder,
That's true.
We only seem derived because there's nothing to compare us to.
If only robust Australopithecines were still around.
Wouldn't that be nice?
What I would say is humans are very derived among hominids, but not super derived among hominins.
Yes, although to push back a bit, I would argue that if we're looking at the hominids, perhaps, like, while humans are very derived genetically speaking, the chimp genome is actually most diverged when compared to the others, because they've got this really heavy sexual selection at play, and they tend to mutate pretty fast. And then you've got orangs, who are very strange because they're, the biggest arboreal hominid. They're the biggest arboreal anything, right? Like, they're just these big chunguses meandering through the trees. It's amazing.
Big bearded chunguses.
Big flanges out. I mean, sun's out, flanges out. But I mean, I don't think people get flack for this, but it's like, if you're gonna give me a plausible cryptid, it's gonna be one of the hominin cryptids, because they've got the cognition to be like, oh, stay away from the people. Depending on who you're talking to, some Bigfoot proponents propose that they bury their dead, and that's why we don't find their corpses.
I still think we would find
there's a lot of work.
I still think we'd find a few, but I'm okay with S tier, because I know that you want S tier on this one.
I think that S tier is easy for Bigfoot because everyone knows who it is. It's very cool, evolutionary speaking. It's very, it's not even remotely implausible, evolutionarily speaking.
Right.
And as far as does it exist? I mean, but more than the others, right?
Right. So TD, are you gonna give pushback on S tier?
Okay, so Bigfoot is objectively cool.
Mm-hmm.
It's reasonably possible, especially for cryptids, or plausible rather. Everybody knows about it. I don't see any reason why this should not be S tier.
Oh, we have a question about the Patterson-Gimlin film. So I'm going to put this in S tier, and then we're going to talk about the Patterson-Gimlin film. But I think rather than me answering that question, once again, I should default to Erica, because if there's anyone who is better qualified on this panel than Erica, no, there isn't. So.
Dude, I love the Patterson-Gimlin film.
Which is where this picture is from.
Yep, I see what Captain Gargoyle is saying. Yeah. So the Patterson-Gimlin film is really interesting. It doesn't make any sense. The problems with the Patterson-Gimlin film, what makes it so difficult to debunk, the reason why to this day, and you won't find anybody really that argues otherwise who's actually kind of looked into the whole Bigfoot history or whatever. And there's plenty of Bigfoot haters out there, right? I would put myself among the skeptics for sure. But this film has never been definitively debunked, so to speak, for one main reason, and it's that the intermembranal index is really weird. So the arms are too long and the legs are too long, but they're not extended at the distal ends. They have long humerus and long femurs, right?
Yeah.
So you've got this would be very, very difficult to replicate in a costume format. I don't know how you would do it. Additionally, according to Jeff Meldrum, I've got his book around here somewhere because I'm hoping to debate him on Modern Day Debate at some point, just to kind of play devil's advocate. But according to some of the anatomists that have looked at this, and specifically the biomechanics people, that's a really interesting one. Some of the people who are really into Bigfoot have sent this off to biomechanics labs and been like, hey, what do you guys think? And they tend to be like, I mean, yeah, this thing is steady on its feet. It doesn't look like someone who's wearing stilts or someone who's in a costume. It looks like something that has a solid weight transfer from back to front. The way that the arms swing seems to be appropriate given the size and the dimensions. And you can almost see muscle definition in some of those areas. If the Patterson-Gimlin film is a hoax, and I'm inclined to lean that direction rather than that there's a North American hominin wandering around that we've never found any, trace fossils of, or trace evidence of. It's the best damn hoax that anyone's ever pulled off. As far as a cryptid goes, certainly, maybe even in general, as far as any of the unknown videos that we have out there. And here's the thing. it's the time period that makes it weird too, because Planet of the Apes, the first Planet of the Apes, wouldn't come out for 3 years after the Patterson-Gimlin film.
And it had significantly worse costumes.
With significantly worse costumes and one of the highest budgets out there for a monster movie, so to speak. So, and the people who saw Patty are these like rando rednecks, right? Like, it's not like these were people who knew costuming really well. There are aspects of the story that make it less plausible. Like, they were out there looking for some kind of creature. They'd heard that there had been sightings in the area, and they were out there trying to film something. That being said, they took casts of the footprints that Patty supposedly left, and apparently they are also not easily dismissed, I guess. An interesting thing about Bigfoot's cast footprints is that guys like Jeff Meldrum, and you can judge this for yourself, he claims that you can take casts of some of these things, and he'll be the first one to tell you the vast majority of these things are hoaxes. I mean, he'll just be like, people strap shit to the bottom of their feet and go tromping around and then take casts of it. But some of them have dermal ridges, like the ridges that you find on your fingerprints and on your toe prints.
So a lot of effort to go for a hoax.
Right, and like some of these people too, they genuinely are in like larger groups of people who can confirm that they didn't plant them themselves, which means some third party must have done it. And it would be like they're out camping like in the middle of the woods, and then they stumble across these weird prints on a mile hike to the river or something like that. It's like, who went to the effort to do this? That's not to say that they're legit. It's just, this is such a cultural icon. You can't write off the fact that a lot of people see what they want to see. And certainly when you look at like black bear hind prints, they tend to look very human-like, but they don't have dermal ridges in the same way that we do either. So there's a lot of shit with the Patterson-Gimlin film and associated trace evidence that's kind of like, I'm an amateur, of course, but I'm not able to be like, it's BS. It's nothing. But when whatever it is, it's strange, right? Like, either someone went to an enormous amount of effort for a hoax that they never really made all that much money off of outside of the original, like, this is what we found. Like, they never really did a whole lot with it. I don't know. I mean, you kind of have to be the judge for yourself.
Yeah.
If you want like a really good retrospective on the Patterson-Gimlin film, Darren Neisch, he's done Twitter threads on it, and he of course has books on the entire subject of cryptozoology. Go get his books. That's what I'm going to say, because the dude's cool.
Well, I think it's time to go on to the Flatwoods Monster. Now, this is another one of the ones that's a little bit on the obscure side. I basically have to remind myself about the story every time that I read about it. So even I'm not like super into the Flatwoods Monster. But basically a group of, I think it was a couple school kids and an adult woman, if I remember correctly, were in a swampy area in Flatwoods, which I don't remember what state it's in, but it's in the United States. And
It's a state.
Yeah, the state of Flatwoods. It's the secret 51st state. They don't actually get any representation, but they're out there. But anyway, so yeah, they're in a swamp, and they allegedly see a like 10-foot tall, glowing red-eyed creature that seemed to maybe be hovering. Now, here's one of the problems: all of the witnesses give slightly different accounts of how big it was, whether it was hovering. All these little details, right? But allegedly it had a big shield, like leaf-shaped thing behind its head. It looked like it was wearing like some kind of a cloak or something. And also apparently there was a horrible smell accompanying it. Although not all of the witnesses report that. And some people who return to the scene report the smell having lingered, and other people report smelling nothing. So that's another one of those details where it's like, it varies. To me, in terms of plausibility, low. I know that there are people who are going to disagree with me out there, and maybe even in here, but I'm not a person who thinks that alien visitation of Earth is likely. So I know. We could have that argument all night with people, but I'm generally of I'm going to have some pretty good evidence before I think it's even a possibility. And this sighting isn't it.
Dapper, Erica, the last time you guys got on aliens, I left to go to bed. It'd been like what 2 hours. So like
Yeah, Eric and I can
Let's
go all
not
night on
run
aliens.
We could
Yeah.
talk about aliens for a while. We could well, okay, again, UFOs and aliens, separate entities. So gotta be clear
That's
on that.
true, because I do think that there is a phenomenon that is occurring with the UFO phenomena. I just think that aliens is one of the least likely explanations, and I know other people disagree with me, and that's fine. You don't have to agree with me on what you think is the most likely. But
Okay.
so when it comes to plausibility, a floating 10-foot tall humanoid, I'm just like, why? What? I don't get it, and it doesn't seem to have any facial features. When it comes to the quality of the sighting, it was only ever seen once. The reports are inconsistent. I think it's actually just an owl in the swamp, where people were out in a creepy swamp. They saw an owl. It was in a tree. There were weird shadows here and there because you're in a creepy swamp. The bad smell is just the swamp because swamps smell bad. Spoiler alerts.
wow.
I know, right? Shocking. Yeah, I think that's basically
That's
what
something
we're
to do
getting
with
here.
algae, I guess.
Some kids and a lady got spooked by an owl.
A dinosaur.
Yes,
A dinosaur.
true, but specifically an owl in the swamp. I honestly think that's what's going on here. And there wasn't any extensive interaction. Apparently, it under different reports, it flew off or it raised up into the air or something like that. Again, owls are very quiet. If you've ever been in the same area where an owl is flying, they're silent. You cannot hear them. So even if it flies away, I still think it's consistent with an owl. So I'm kind of F tier on Flatwoods Monster. I don't know. What do you think?
I'm still saying Frodo and Grethor.
Wow, strong.
Yeah. It's just an owl.
Yeah, I think that the Flatwoods Monster it's certainly original. It's fun. I think that the Flatwoods Monster, whenever you actually start looking into what the claim is and what everybody says that they saw, it kind of starts to fall apart. I don't know what it could have been swamp gas for all we know, and maybe that's what caused the smell too. And you got a bunch of people who, are hyping each other up and getting scared and seeing weird things in a swamp, which is, as you said, already a scary place.
It's like the Pine
but,
Barrens. It's already creepy.
Yeah, I don't think it's I don't know that it's Coyote Chupacabra bad.
Well, that's why I think it's F, because the Coyote Chupacabra.
I would put it in F tier. I think
F tier?
I put it in F tier. I like how weird it is. I think it's a very creative one. And here's another thing. I've got a soft spot for the modern cryptids.
Right.
Because it almost feels like it's a lot harder to establish a cryptid when people without a past, I guess. So it's always impressive to me when cryptids kind of take hold in the cultural consciousness. And a lot of people who give a shit about cryptids tend to know about the Flatwoods Monster. It tends to be on a lot of top 10 lists.
Yeah.
I put it enough.
Okay. Yeah, I can see that as not quite Shadow Realm. It's got some stuff going for it. Not a lot, but it's got something going for it.
That's not.
Look, it was an owl that was saying, "Get out of the swamp!"
I mean,
Could have been.
yeah,
It
but
was just Shrek.
that could be a lot of things on this list. That's the problem.
Yeah.
So
A lot of potential owls.
now we come to the
Owls.
Hopkinsville Goblins, which is another one that's a little bit on the obscure side. We don't have a long history of sightings, but basically, in Hopkinsville, is it Alabama? Why do I think it's in Alabama?
I think it was Alabama. I want to say it's Alabama.
Well, it might have been.
Alabama does seem like a place.
Anyone who wants
Alabama-
to use... I'm sorry.
Alabama does seem like a place filled with goblins.
Well, yeah. Anyone who wants to use the Google box to find out if Hopkinsville is in fact in Alabama, let me know. I have mixed feelings about Alabama overall, although I will say that when I was there last, I had some excellent catfish and hush puppies. So much so that I went back to that restaurant every night I was there, and I was there for, I think, 3 nights. So, yeah, I had the same order every time. Catfish, hush puppies, fried okra. And plenty of hot sauce. Yeah. That's like my jam right there. Is a good fried catfish with hush puppies and fried okra. I'm gonna be happy. So anyway. Oh, sorry.
Okay, sorry.
I was just going to describe
No,
the
go
Hopkinsville Goblins. So the Hopkinsville Goblins there's only one sighting involving them, right? So the story is that a a family living in a house. So I think it's a mom and a dad and several sons and I think maybe a daughter. I'm not sure. Anyway, they are at home one night and one of them spots a small humanoid creature with big glowy eyes, or big reflective eyes maybe, and big old ears. And they run back inside and they're like, oh, hey, I just saw this thing. And then over the course of the next few hours, the quote-unquote goblins essentially besiege the house, and there's like a battle in there. And when the police came by, eventually, they did in fact find evidence of, people shooting, but they didn't find evidence of anything being hit. And as far as I know, there was never been another sighting that is corresponding to the Hopkinsville goblins after that. So if the story is believed at face value, weird goblin creatures attacked the house for some reason, were shot at by the inhabitants of the house, either not hit or not damaged, and then left. So it's a fun story. I like it as a story, right? Like, again, this is sort of like with the canines. Like, I can imagine making a fun movie out of this, right? You're in rural Alabama. You've got like a wall of shotguns or something in one part of the house, right? And there's the family living there, and one of them sees something. He comes in. The family's like, "Oh no, that's crazy. You didn't see that. That's whatever." But then they start actually besieging the house, and you have to try and fend them off, and the guns are only somewhat effective. Like, I can see that being a fun time to watch as a movie. And from a plausibility standpoint, small, big ear guy is not it's certainly not as implausible as Mapinguari or Jersey Devil. Like, I think we're in C-tier plausibility here. Like, nothing obviously bad.
Usually the Hopkinsville goblins are presented as some kind of alien encounter. Usually they're presented, at least from what I've seen. They present them as an alien encounter. These things have are associated with weird lights and the orbs, the whole shebang. And the thing that strikes me the most about the Hopkinsville goblins is, again, everyone in the house claims to have seen these things, or the vast majority of the adults at least, which are the accounts.
And they have, from what I remember, fairly consistent descriptions.
They're consistent descriptions, and then the thing that I think is the weirdest about them is they report them to the sheriff, and the sheriff keeps being like, y'all are crazy, and then they move. They left the house. They did not go back after they were besieged by these goblins. They left the house, they never went back, and then they sold it. And they were they never spoke about it again, really. The only way we really know about it is through the original report, primarily. And so these guys were whatever they saw scared them. I mean, I don't know what it was that they saw or think they saw, but it spooked them enough, and it seems to spook them in a genuine way, because they weren't trying to make a name for themselves with it. They were we saw some weird shit and we don't want to stick around.
I mean, there's clearly a greenskin infestation in Alabama. Then that's the only thing I can draw from this.
So
gotta worry about the orcs too.
Yeah, so
could be. I don't know. It's a weird deal.
I have mixed feelings on this, because one thing, I think the quality of the sighting is not great. It's better than the Dover Demon, which is basically one guy saw a thing one day. But it's worse than, say, the Mongolian Deathworm, which is something that people in a particular culture seem to have been seeing consistently for at least a long time. On the other hand, I don't think it's super implausible. I think it's a cool thing. I like the look of the Hopkinsville goblins. I think they're a cool creature if they were real. And in terms of cultural impact, it's sort of iffy on that, because they're a fairly popular thing in ufology and cryptozoology, but outside of that, I don't think they've had a huge impact. There's certainly no Bigfoot in terms of culture.
Yeah, I think it's a fun story, but the strange thing about it is that it's a one-off. So let's take the leap, right? And let's assume that these random folks living in Alabama in a rural cabin were hoodwinked by these little literally little green men. Why? Right? What did they want? What were they doing? I mean, I'm almost inclined to believe that on this one, maybe someone had a psychotic episode, and then everyone else was okay, someone we trust is having a psychotic episode, and people are really good at talking themselves into thinking that they're seeing things. And then made like mountains out of molehills. I mean, the weird thing is that these things don't seem to match any other kind of cryptid, which makes me kind of think that it's less of a cultural thing and more of like a one-off meltdown almost. I don't know. It's a weird one.
Yeah, they're certainly bizarre, and I think for that reason they're probably better than, say, Mokele and Bembe. I'm okay with the C on this one.
Better.
C?
I would C first.
Yeah, I'm hostile towards any of the dinosaur cryptids that are like strictly dinosaur cryptids, but not because they're not cool, but because under every single kind of dinosaur cryptid, there is like a creationist silver lining.
The creationist boogeyman.
Yeah, and I like to keep creationists out of my cryptids. Like, I like my cryptids,
they're
fun
deeply
and
embedded in cryptozoology, Erica. There's no way around it.
They do like cryptozoology, and I would be lying if I said I had never heard a creationist claim that Bigfoot is a Nephilim, which just made me want to take it out back and, end it all over myself. But it's like, you tend to get it a lot more with the Ropin, Mokele and Bembe, and less with like Nessie. Like lake monsters tend to usually avoid that because there's such a wide variety. It's like sea serpents, and some are like plesiosaurs, and some are big alligators. I don't know.
Erica, there are literal sea serpents though.
That's true.
Yeah, but they're the small mini ones that aren't as fun and can.
But there's also the oarfish, which does look like a legendary sea serpent, and it is pretty big. I mean, they get like 7-8 feet long.
Oarfish are beautiful. And the way that they move when they surface, that seems to be the root of a lot of people's quintessential sea serpent. Yeah.
But now we come to the Nandi bear, and I'm including the general category of large unknown African carnivore, because there's a fair few of them where we talk about like, there's a mysterious big cat or a mysterious bear-like animal or a giant hyena or something like that, right? Like there's a lot of reports of like big scary monster from Africa that's basically just an unknown known taxonomic group of carnivorans, right? So the Nandi bear, as well as those, they all have in common, they're usually from some of the drier regions in Africa, because the swamps tend to have like weird lizard monsters and crocodile monsters and dinosaurs, I guess. So they tend to be from the same types of areas where you would expect to find like lions and hyenas and whatnot. And so with the Nandi bear, it goes back and forth between being sort of a cat or maybe an unknown, like the African ursid, because there aren't any African ursids really. And I think for plausibility, it's pretty high. Like, unknown carnivoran is not a crazy idea.
Yeah. I think the issue with this is that there's not a great fossil record for these guys. Like, they almost run into the same issue as like North American hominins, is that it's like,
remember though, we're including unknown African carnivorans as a group, and so for specifically an ursid, no, there's not. But for things like a currently unknown big cat, yeah, there is.
No, I mean, I could get behind in Central Africa some strange group of carnivorans that we've just not encountered yet. Especially if you're dealing with something that thrives on like small population sizes, like
it's just a late surviving intelligent.
Could be.
I mean, maybe, but I think more likely would be like, what about a late surviving one of the larger bone crushing hyenas? Right? We still have bone crushing hyenas around.
Yeah, it's plausible enough. I like the Nandi bear. I think that the Nandi bear, like, assuming again we're doing the whole all out, weird African carnivorans that are unknown. They're fun. They're kind of plausible.
I think it's similar. Yeah, I think it's like the bunyip, right? Where it's one of those things where it's like, it's not the most culturally impactful, but it's also fundamentally a reasonably plausible thing. And those sightings of the various, African carnivorans of unknown origin or whatever go back certainly before the arrival of white people. In fact, when in some of the earlier colonial stories about this, you'll see situations where the existence of an unknown carnivore is used to explain what actually do look like animal attacks in known like settlements and villages and whatnot. And then the rather than this gaining anything for the locals, the colonial officials are just dismissive. and don't do anything, and then more attacks will happen and more people will die, and then eventually, finally, there'll be some kind of a hunt or something that usually turns up more or less nothing. And so it's one of those things where like the stories about this, even from our earliest Western reports, don't seem like the Mokele and Bembe, where it's just like, look, you guys were giving them like, you know, bottles of Coke and cash. Of course they're going to tell you whatever you wanted to hear because you're a dumbass who doesn't think that that's going to prejudice people.
Yeah, and another thing about that too is that you've got cases like the Lions of Tsavo, right? Where
Right.
You've got these two massive maneless male lions that killed a ton of people, and like genuinely, and then they hunted them down, and they're on display now. I think in the Field Museum in Chicago, or replicas are anyway.
And the inspiration for The Ghost in the Darkness, the movie, which was also a movie that I enjoyed.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, there was another one in India, I think, a tigress, and she killed like 300 people or something like that. And I imagine probably in villages. And it turns out she had an infected tooth. The hunter that finally killed her was like, "Oh, this tiger couldn't eat anything tougher than people, pretty much." Like I had to keep off the fringes. But
the Venerable
I
Bead
think
says,
that's actually the animal.
So the Venerable Bead says there
Okay.
was a prehistoric bear from Africa. I'm not aware of that. But that is
I didn't know that.
that's true.
Is it like a short-faced bear, maybe?
Those are from North America. I don't think we would have Tremarctinines. I don't know. Because the genus is Tremarctis. But so all right. So I think we get B from me and Erica. TD, what are you thinking?
Yeah, I think it's the same level as Bunyip.
Yeah, it's one of those things where it's like, is it the coolest? No, but it's fundamentally not a terribly implausible creature. All right, so
it was the Atlas bear, by the way. The Atlas bear inhabited northern Africa and Morocco.
Okay.
Yeah.
So now we come to the Wendigo, which I was not actually sure if I would include it because I think of the Wendigo as more like the vampire than anything else. Like, because if you look at the actual legends about it, the idea is supposed to be that someone who is particularly greedy turns into this insatiable cannibalistic monster who has nothing on its mind but a hunger for human flesh because it's trying to consume the community, which is what, according to legend, excessive greed does, right? Excessive greed allows you to, or prompts you to do things that more or less figuratively consume the community. And so the Wendigo is then a sort of spiritual manifestation of this. You're cursed by the Wendigo because of your immense greed to become someone who literally consumes the community in the form of eating people. On the other hand, though, there have been more recent reports, under the umbrella of Wendigo that have involved this, what you're seeing here, is sort of like deer-headed, lanky, rotting humanoid thing. Whereas the original descriptions were more like a zombie in terms of appearance than a weird deer head guy. So it's one of those things where it's like, because I don't really think of vampires as cryptids. I think of them as like I think of undead things as like in a sort of separate category from cryptids. But on the other hand,
people don't see them, I mean, like,
not
people
often
don't encounter zombies really, unless you're in like Florida and someone's on bath salts. Like, otherwise, people are just like, no one is like, oh my god, like if you go in the cemetery at night, like you might actually see a real zombie. Whereas, like, some folks, if you go to the Pacific Northwest, they're like, look out for Bigfoot, and they're serious. Like,
right.
So yeah, I mean, the Wendigo, I think it's cool. I think it's neat. A lot of people know about it these days. There are a lot of creepypastas that feature this particular.
Yeah, big cultural impact. And that's, one of the things is, I wasn't originally going to include it because I wasn't sure if it really counts as a cryptid. But then, whenever I mentioned that I was thinking about doing a cryptid tier list, and I would tell people, like, here's the things I'm thinking about including, one of the questions that a lot of people asked was, well, what about the Wendigo? And I'm like, well, I'm not sure it counts. But since everyone is asking about it, it's sort of like the descriptive versus prescriptive. If everyone thinks it's a cryptid, do I actually get to disagree?
Yeah, I mean, and if we're assuming it's a cryptid, as far as like a creature, I think it's pretty cool.
Oh yeah, it's
for me.
Cool
a lot
design.
of people, more people know about it than they know about the Nandy Bear I'd propose. So I think maybe an A tier for them to go.
Well, A tier in terms of coolness and perhaps impact, but I'm going to push back a little bit and say that in terms of plausibility, the humanoid pentadactyl deer, no, not a high degree of plausibility there.
Yeah.
Are we? So the thing that I'm thinking about it though is that it's like with Mothman, you've almost got a same situation, right? Like, you've got high cultural impact, something that maybe isn't supremely biologically plausible, but large cultural impact, and not impossible. Like, it's not like we've never seen anything like it.
It's certainly not as impossible as Mapinguari or the Dover Demon.
Right.
Okay, I'm okay with A tier. TD?
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
All right. Well, I think
I just like it. I think it's cool. Listen, feel free to push back. I'm just arguing that, like, if we're gonna allow Mothman the angel of death of the Silver Bridge, like, I think we can put the Wendigo up there too.
Yeah. No.
And plus, I just think it's more well known than a lot of the B tier. Like, ideally, I suppose we could put it between Nessie and our Dogmen, theoretically. That's probably where we could put it, but I don't know.
Is there something? By the way, before we end, I want to start a petition in chat. If you want to move the Fresno Nightcrawler up to S tier, put a jeans emoji in the chat.
Oh, which one?
Jeans emoji.
Jeans emoji.
Fresno Nightcrawler is an S tier cryptid. If you don't put the Fresno Nightcrawler in S tier, it will make me sad. Because this is a pair of pants that is a recent cryptid, and if you look it up, you will get the cutest, funniest fan art of this thing.
I've seen some pretty adorable plushies. Yeah, plushies.
You can get plushies of the Fresno Nightcrawler. If I ever find myself in Fresno, I'm getting merch. Because I want to get it from the source, you know?
Honestly, the Fresno Nightcrawler is the most Californian cryptid of them all.
Dude, it's pants on a line. I love it. I love this thing. And my plausibility meter for it is I'm picturing some kind of, like, it's almost got to be some kind of weird entity that's a tetrapod, but with really small arms that it hugs up close to its body, and it's got these weird long stiltish legs.
No, it's just a python.
It's so silly.
All right. Well, we so far we only have 2 jeans emojis, and out of our current viewers, it's not quite enough. I'm going to need to see a fair few more.
Come on.
Yeah.
Shame on you.
What we'll do is we'll start giving some wrap-up stuff, and if I see a fair few more, then we can talk about that. But Erica, what have you got for us? What do you got coming up?
Oh boy, I'm going to be out of town all next week, so I'm going to have a couple of different videos that are scheduled to release. I've just finished up a Library of Error video that is really long, so there's going to be that. Nice. I'm hoping to have a Poly Street video out for a bite-sized bust. And I've got a surprise video that I'm also going to release, and I'm not going to say anything about it because it's going to be kind of goofy and fun. Well, you know what? I'll just say it anyways. I'm gonna release a video next week that's a reading of an ancient copy of The Great Dinosaur Mystery Solved by Ken Ham. This is like his 1998 copy that I found in my basement.
Oh my goodness, that's amazing.
It's like, listen to this. This thing is so ancient. This thing crackles. So, and my grandfather apparently gave it to someone on my dad's side of the family a couple years back. Whatever, like 2 decades ago. Oh my God, 2 decades ago. But yeah. So I figured I'd just take a couple chapters of it and milk some content out of it, since someone spent money on my family.
Okay, so I'm looking at the live chat. We've got 4 pairs of jeans in there.
It's not even a quarter of the chat.
Some people are saying pants. Chaucer and Bumblebee are saying pants.
I can't pants, but I say pants. All right, yeah. So okay, I'll count that as a 5th.
Yeah.
Oh, and a 6 for the federal beat. All right, 6. But we're still not terribly close to it being even a majority. So.
I know you've got lurkers out there who just don't want to be in the chat.
Look who decided to show up right as we're about to end. Chesh, you missed the entire thing.
You missed the literal
And you're
goblins.
muted. And you're muted.
I managed to somehow not get a single notification anywhere.
What?
Until now.
Thanks, YouTube.
Yeah, I saw it now.
Oh well.
Ooh.
Well,
YouTube.
Sorry.
Hey, Chess, where would you, out of curiosity, where would you put the Fresno Nightcrawler?
I mean, obviously in Klingon tier.
Oh,
so
no.
No, that's not where she's putting S tier. Chesh is not helping your case, Erica.
I can win Chesh over very easily. Chesh, look up Fresno Nightcrawler plushies and then tell me that you don't want
Okay,
one.
I might be swayed by plushies.
That's what I was thinking. I know you well enough to know that you'll be swayed.
All right, TD Lane, you
Oh
got
wow,
anything
it
coming
comes
up?
up in a Google search. Oh my god.
Could you say that again,
It's
Dapper?
adorable.
Do you have anything?
Yep, what I said.
Because we are doing some wrap ups. Do you have anything to announce to anybody?
No.
Fair enough. Chesh, what do you got for us now that we're
Yeah.
closing up?
Oh, that wouldn't be fair.
Alright, fair
I'm an
enough.
asshole.
Well,
The end.
one thing I will point out is that probably on Chess's channel, that's currently the current consensus plan, the four of us, plus a few, will be doing some D&D streams. So if you want to see Chesh and Erica, TD Lane, myself, Benthoven, and Erica's significant other play some D&D with Maddie from Science Side Up. Like that, right now it looks like it's going to be every other week. Probably starting, I'm not sure, but I think it might start not next week, but the week after. But that's still up in the air, so don't quote me on that. But yeah, that will probably be
soon.
Yeah, every other Monday is what we're looking at right now on Chesh's channel, and super chats on that will go towards either getting more game materials or other things to help support the game itself, or we're gonna figure out a charity to donate that extra stuff to, and then that'll be for the first few days or so worth of revenue, and then any ad revenue after that will just go onto Chesh's channel, because none of us want to have to keep track of now Chesh, that 13 cents of that video made in the last 6 months, so can we get some of that?
That
no.
whole quarter.
Right. So there you go. That is coming up on my channel specifically. Day after tomorrow, I am releasing a video in which I take a look at an article on creation.com. The creation.com content is voiced by Benthoven, but I also put the article up on screen so you can read along with Benthoven's narration. Then on Saturday, I should be having a Leaving Young Earth Creationism with David P. Neff, who has been on the channel several times, so a friend of the channel. Then the next Tuesday, actually, right now, it looks like it's going to be a pre-recorded Kent with Bent, because I am having a guest for the first time in over a year. And so I don't know if I'm going to actually be able to do a live recording, because we might all like to do things like, hang out and spend time as a group of friends, because no one's been doing that forever. But now my friend is fully vaccinated. Bent is going to be fully vaccinated on Friday. Next Friday after, I'm going to get my second vaccine. So we're starting off with one fully vaccinated person, quickly going to two, and then eventually getting to the third. And at that point, I was like, yeah, that's fine by me in terms of the safety. That works. So if it's not a pre-recorded Kent with Bent, it'll probably either be live, or if Erica wants, since we did lose out on this month, we could do an Eric with Erica, but that's going to be if it's not pre-recorded and Erica's okay with that, which I don't know that she would be, so no promises there.
I have no idea. I have no idea.
Right.
We could probably make it work.
Well, let me know, but it also might just be that we just do a pre-recorded thing, because we have...
Yeah.
My friend is getting here tomorrow, but she's getting in very late, so we have most of tomorrow to record it if we need to. I'm also... I believe I finished all the art that I need for the next Speculative Evolution update. I think. I have to double check, but I don't think I need to make any more before I actually start recording the audio for that. And yeah, that's basically it. So hopefully that update will be out either a week from Thursday or 2 weeks from Thursday, depending. And then I do also have a debate from Modern Day Debate that I'm going to upload to the channel on one of those Thursdays. And TD Lane, you had a last bit?
Walker is in the chat, so I want to ask, is Alabama filled with goblins?
That is a good question. It wasn't when I was there, but, you never know. All right, well, thank you, everybody, for coming by. Thank you for everyone who stayed around and super chatted and chatted in the chat and voted. Sorry, but I did not get enough genes to up the Fresno Nightcrawlers to S, so...
Okay, always S tier to me.
All right, well, that's fair.
Oh.
But the chat and the panel didn't agree strongly enough, so...
It's S tier in our hearts.
All right, well, I'm going to play the end credits, and we are going to be out of here. So, bye, everybody. I want to take a little time to thank my channel members and patrons, especially those pledging $20 or more. Bob Knob, Bent Hovend, Ian Chen, Chris Love, Sphincter of Doom, The Venerable Bede, Patrick Dennis, and Res Instance. YouTube is a very volatile platform, what with fraudulent copyright claims, demonetization, and the ever-decreasing share of ad revenue on the platform. It is very hard to rely on YouTube. My members and patrons help keep this channel going, and without them, the channel wouldn't exist. If you'd like to join my Patreon, the link is in the description, and if you'd like to become a channel member, that link is below the video. It's the join button here on YouTube. Either way, you'll get access to early videos, an exclusive Discord server, and if you pledge enough, 3D assets you can use in your own projects.